Check, check, 1, 2. Check test, 1, 2, 3, 4. Checking audio, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Dinner at the brew house.
There you go.
And fish fry. It was fried.
All right, I'm showing 7 o'clock, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I got it on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can you hear me over there, Mike? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, Molly, if you can help us with the roll call, please.
Yep. Alderperson Henry. Here. Alderperson Wilkin.
Here.
Alderperson Grimmer.
Here.
Alderperson Price.
Here.
Alderperson Eicher.
Here.
Alderperson Schaefer and Alderperson Valley are excused this evening. Mayor Atwell.
Present.
Administrator Hafner.
Here.
Attorney Sawyer Gutenkunst.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, approval of the following meeting minutes, September 18th, 2023, regular meeting.
Move to approve September 18th minutes.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to number 5, City of Delafield citizens' comments. Is there anyone that would like to come up and speak today? Anybody that would like to come up and speak today? Going once, twice. All right, Jim. Almost let me get to 3.
Good evening.
Jim, if you could push the red.
Zohoric, 1940.
There you go.
This one?
Yep.
Good evening. Jim Zohoric, 1948, West Shore Drive, City of Delafield. In just a little bit, you'll be going into closed session. I have addressed this council before on the same subject material, and something to think about as we go into closed session. I'm saying we because you represent all of us taxpayers. We're all trying to do the right thing. And we know how serious this situation is as far as getting full-time help. That the volunteer group is dwindling, and you've all worked very hard to put this together. But looking backwards, back to January 3rd of 2023, where this was in its infancy preceding the referendum, the costs were described, and the LCFR board had an approved budget, and the dollar amount per ESE was $531. There was a lot of discussion. I was going back through the minutes now trying to figure out how do we get to where we are right now after reading some of the things that are in the local newspapers that kind of suggest that the LCFR is asking for more than they originally did, and that we just can't keep giving money. But the fact of the matter is that the budget that was presented to the council and the motion made by Mr. Grimmer and seconded by Paul Price to direct the city administrator create referendum language that includes the 2024 LCFR board budget, combines the EMS and fire protection onto one statement. There's discussion back and forth, but then Mr. Grimmer motioned not to exceed the 2024 language. That 2024 language represented $531 per ESE. on January 16th, looking backwards, a number of suggestions were presented, but when it came down to a motion by Mr. Grimmer, seconded by, at that time, Wayne Dane, to approve Resolution 2023-01 with the following changes. Changing the fire protection emergency service of not more than, and that was to strike 560, that was going to be the upper limit. The budget really asked for 531, but the CPI involved, it was requested that we don't bring the CPI into the discussion. So, to strike the 560 limit and insert $450 for the ESC. That 450 creates a deficiency from the budget. The budget that was approved by motion 2 weeks earlier. I understand that there's reasons for doing this, but just so that it's on the table, LCFR is not asking for more now, after the fact. It was that when it was presented, discussed, and approved, it involved the 531 per ESC, and then 2 weeks later, the city, and I'm sure there's all good reasons for that, but to reduce that 531 to 450. The town of Delafield has now offered a counter proposal. I'm sure we've all read about it. As I've asked before, that all of you go in there with an open mind. We want this to succeed. There's no correlation, but sometimes you think about this, that we were just hanging on a thin edge last Friday and Saturday that we were going to have a government shutdown. And that's, in our little world right here in Delafield, that's kind of the way this old man is thinking right now. That we have to come to an agreement, because otherwise we're going to start losing these people that we just brought on. I thank you very much for all your attention, and I know you'll do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments.
Push this button.
Yes, please.
Any other citizens' comments? Come on up.
Megan Stevens, 225 Birch Road, Delafield. I actually wasn't going to speak, but thank you, Jim. I am not an avid attendee of these meetings, but obviously in light of the conversation going on, wanted to come here in a much more global perspective. I think as a community, whether you talk about our school districts, whether you talk about our city, I want to make sure that we don't kind of keep ending up in these same positions where we are continually coming back, which feels like a lot of lack of transparency from to the community in what is being communicated and what we're voting on. And this goes back even to the, not this past referendum, but the referendum before. In no comparison to the rescue services, but the change in the garbage carriers that we were doing. There wasn't a lot of communication that went out, and I think that this is showing on a much broader scale across our entire city the lack of communication that is existing, and Jim ended with that exactly, which was that nothing has changed from what was communicated as the need, but we didn't address that. And when I say we, I mean you guys as a group. We didn't address that need, and that was always communicated up front, and don't understand how that changes when that information is known from the very beginning. And so ultimately, just want to understand not only having an open mind and getting the goal that all of the taxpayers voted for in the referendum, but being more transparent. The verbiage of the $450, my husband and I sit down and talk about these things before each vote and discuss what that means. What does it mean to us as the taxpayers? How much more am I going to be paying? And not every family or couple or individual does that, I'm sure, but we are diligent in that. We do understand what that means to us truly as the taxpayer. And that $450, there is a context that needs to be articulated to the community, because if had I known, and maybe that was somewhere, but I don't know where to look for that, had I known that that cap meant the $300,000 shortfall, I would have asked a question about that. And I think that a lot more people would have asked more questions about that. So I ask, and as we look forward in a forward-looking global landscape, how can we be better communicators as a community, as council, to make sure that everyone is on the same page in what that end goal is and how we get there. So I did not have this prepared, so I appreciate your time. And again, as Jim asked, I hope that is all taken into consideration and we get to where we need to be to make sure that each and every one of us is safe when we need to be. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who would like to be next? Come on up.
Jennifer Jeske, 110 Hickory Court,
Can you please spell your last name?
Jaeschke. Not what you would have expected. So I just wanted to make a few comments in regards to the Lake Country Fire and Rescue. And mostly I really want to support the city in their efforts to get this right and work through this. I think that I have to agree with Megan. I think there probably is definitely room for more transparency and, a clear explanation of what's going on. I do get notifications from the city about the meetings and the agendas and the minutes and things like that, but sometimes they are so long, like hundreds of pages long, that it can be difficult to get through all of that and stay on top of things. And we happened to be gone when there was a special meeting. I think it was back in mid-September, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know the answer of how to communicate it better, but I tend to think there must be a better way. That said, I think that it seems to me, from what I do understand, that Delafield is putting forth more than, every bit of their fair share. And I was surprised to hear in the news that other municipalities seem to think otherwise. I believe that our per rooftop fee of $450 is more than any of the other municipalities are paying per rooftop for the same services. So I would question that. Why are we paying more? And if we're paying more, then why isn't that enough? So I just want to support you all in your negotiations and, root for fairness here. I think that, like I said, that maybe there's some fine print or some difficulties in the contract and the way it was written and what was striked out and what wasn't. But I think that Delafield has put forth a good bit of financial support for this. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, citizens' comments are now closed. We'll move on to number 6. Announcement of matters for possible closed session. The council will reconvene into open session after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of the agenda. 6A, motion to convene into closed session pursuant to the provisions of Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public businesses whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, More specifically, the most recent proposed First Amendment to the Lake Country Fire and Rescue Intermunicipal Agreement as proposed and approved by the town of Delafield. And we'll also be covering 6B, motion to convene into closed session pursuant to the provision of Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, and compensation or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. More specifically, the contract employment and compensation of the city planner. So how this is going to work is we're going to have a motion to go into closed session. Then we're going to ask everyone to exit the room other than those involved. We'll be in closed session, and then we'll vote to come out of closed session, and we'll finish the remainder of the agenda. Looking for a motion to go into closed
I'll
session.
make a motion to go into closed session.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderperson Henry.
Aye.
Alderperson Wilkin.
Aye.
Alderperson Grimmer.
Aye.
Alderperson Price.
Aye.
Alderperson Eicher.
Aye.
I'll be at,
The bar?
yeah.
It won't be long.
Oh, yeah. I classed it up a little bit.
Hey, do we want to let Amy go first so we can get her out of here?
I thought we were gonna do Kathy first, but it'll be up
And
to
then we
you.
get her, then she can leave?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be up to you though.
No, Kathy's more expensive. Okay, we're going to go ahead and look for a motion to reconvene into open session.
Move to go into open session.
A second.
Roll call vote, please.
Henry,
Aye.
Wilkin,
Aye.
Grimmer,
Aye.
Price,
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Iker.
Aye.
One more. Got me on the pause. Okay, we'll move back to 6A. I'm sorry, 6D, discussion and possible action regarding items discussed in closed session. So let's do 6A first.
I'll make a motion to not accept the First Amendment to the Lake Country Fire and Rescue Intermunicipal Agreement proposed by the town of Delafield.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say I appreciate the fact that there was effort clearly put in to give us some feedback for us to consider and act on. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, I would absolutely concur with Alderman Eicher's statement. It was very helpful.
I agree. I think we're moving forward. Every time we get another addition back, it's a little closer to something that we can accept. And so we'll keep at it.
Sounds good. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to 6B.
Wait.
No, I've got an idea.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
I'll make a motion to utilize the town's amendment as a template for our own amendment to the IMA with the following changes, and that would be on page 2, after LCFR's, in the paragraph reading LCFR's 2024 operating budget, to change that from what was proposed by the town to read LCFR's 2024 operating budget. The municipalities agree for the calendar year 2024 operating budget only. The aforementioned restrictions shall not apply. The municipal contribution to the Lake Country Fire and Rescue operating budget for the calendar year 2024 shall be $3.857098 million, plus the amount budgeted but not actually expended for staffing in calendar year 2023. Solely for the purposes of illustration, if the amount budgeted but not actually expended for staffing in calendar year 2023 is $250,000, then the LCFR's 2024 operating budget shall be $4.107098 million. And then the following paragraphs for the rest of the section that were redlined remain redlined and out, meaning no opening up of the IMA formulas and contract for future years.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Paul?
Yeah, I mean, again, thanks for the feedback. It's clear that, and we get this from the meeting, the joint meeting as well, that there's not an appetite to link the renegotiation of the IMA formulas as a part of passing the budget for 2024, and that message came through loud and clear. And likewise, echoing back what what I feel is important about what we're suggesting and proposing here is twofold. One is we entered into a contract with our own constituents here in the city when we put forth a referendum and they voted on it. And it was clear that people were on different sides and looking at this from different angles as far as new taxes or increased taxes. And a not to exceed number was a clear portion of that referendum that attracted voters and some support, along with the fact that it's a clear statement of increasing the 2024 budget by over $400,000 in new contributions from our taxpayers. And so this is something that I think that we can use if this gets moved forward as a clear basis to show that we are increasing the baseline budget, operating budget for the Lake Country Fire and Rescue from what would otherwise be around $2.7 million to well over 3.7, close to over $3.8 million in just a year. And I think that's significant, and it does ring true to the intent of our referendum and how it was presented to the public, to hire 7 new firefighters for 2023 and keep them. And that is what I feel this does, and the math shows that as well. So that's some of the background for those who haven't been keeping score, but it is difficult to follow all this at times. So that's some of my rationale for wanting to support this and move it forward.
I'm going to say I'm not happy with this because I think that while we're only addressing this, next year's budget, we have more to look at, and not addressing the IMA and the formula means we're going to be pretty much right back in the same situation next year with the negotiation. So I'm not happy taking that out. However, it's encouraging to me that the community, that town of Delafield is trying to work with us, and what we committed to was keeping the firefighters that have already been hired. That was what we were going for, and to not approve the 3.857 would be to not be able to retain the firefighters that were already hired. So that would be my reason for supporting this, even though I don't like it. I don't like that we're not going to be addressing the IMA formula.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we are on to,
I'd like to make another motion related to
oh,
closed session.
I'm sorry.
No worries. I'll make a motion to direct the city administrator to move forward into an agreement with Amy Barrows regarding city planning services.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Good idea.
Good discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, that wraps it up for the closed session. We'll get back to the regular agenda. 7, consent agenda, we have no items. 8, boards, committees, and commissions. I assume we have nothing for licenses, so we'll move on to B, planning commission. Commission report by Mr. Iker.
All right, let me get there. Okay, well, the minutes are excellent. Refer to those as far as other fun things that happened at our last meeting. We are going through several text amendments to our code to make things less ambiguous and easier to deal with and understand. And we did do a discussion on the council sending back a proposed update to the code regarding access easements for interior properties, and we'll be seeing that in a future date. So we're making the appropriate changes there. What we have in front of us is something that's not new business really, but it is something that is the culmination of work that's been underway for a while, and that's the developers agreement for 29 lot single family residential subdivision. It is called, what do we have the name in here? Delafield Parkway. Delafield Parkway. So this is the property adjacent to the American Legion. And without any significant changes to what we've seen all along, this is really just approving the developers agreement for that subdivision. So I will go ahead and make that motion to approve the developers agreement for Delafield Parkway.
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And we did also go through the same steps for the St. John's Estates. So we'll be seeing those types of things coming forward in the future as well, like stormwater management agreements, developers agreements, final implementation plan, all that fun stuff. So. And that's all I have for plan.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lake Welfare Committee, Mr. Price.
They have not met since our last meeting, so it's next
Okay.
week.
Park and Rec, I'll refer you to the minutes as Alderman Schaefer is not here. Public Works Committee, Mr. Grimmer.
No meeting since our last. Our next meeting is on October 4th. We do have an action item on the agenda tonight. There was some discussion at our last meeting on updating the traffic map to include no parking restrictions on Bleecker Street and Division Street, south to the south end of the boulevard, primarily for, to allow snowplow and EMS access. That's on page 26 and 27 of your agenda. So I'll make that motion in E2.
Second?
Great, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes. Okay, Delahart, back to Mr. Iker.
I don't know that we had a meeting since we last met, but the reins are being handed off from Scott to Rob for our general manager, and that seems to be going well. So anybody interested in going introduce themselves, walk over. Rob is now in Scott's office at Delhart, so go say hi.
I'll do that. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, G, Police Commission. Ms. Valdez not here. I don't believe they had a meeting. Library Board, Ms. Henry.
No meeting, no report.
Okay, Zoning Board of Appeals. I believe they have something coming up soon, but nothing in the past. J, Promotion and Tourism. I'll refer you to the minutes. Again, that's Mr. Schaefer's, and he is not here. K, Lake Country Fire and Rescue Commission. Not aware of a meeting. Lake Country Fire and Rescue Board, Mr. Grimmer, you did not have a meeting?
No meeting. Next meeting is October 11th at 5 p.m. at Station 42, which is your City of Delafield station.
Matt, is it not October 5th?
No, they changed it to October 11th.
Okay.
I can validate that. I already validated it. It's October 11th.
Okay, thank you very much. Deer Management Committee,
No meeting, no report.
there you go. Okay, no other committees or commissions, so we'll move on to unfinished business. Discussion of possible action regarding ordinance 820, an ordinance to amend section 4-48 of the City of Delafield Municipal Code regarding the Reserve Class B liquor license initial insurance fee. I assume that's yours, Molly?
Yes, so a couple meetings ago, the council discussed the going rate, market rate for the Reserve Class B liquor license initial issuance fee. So that's the one-time fee that they pay for the license. The annual fees are $500 and $100 respectively for the Class B liquor and the Class B beer. The determination was the reserve fee would be increased to $30,000. The state statutes state that each municipal governing body shall establish the fee in an amount of not less than $10,000 for an initial issuance of a Reserve Class B license as defined in the subsection. So it gives us the ability to establish the fee at that $30,000. This ordinance does so, and then also as kind of a fell swoop includes the update to the fee schedule, if you so choose to go ahead and move forward with that.
So do we have a motion on that topic?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 820, or update ordinance number 820, is that correct?
No, it's approving the ordinance,
Oh,
which
okay,
updates the section of.
Then I'll move to approve ordinance number 820.
Oh, second.
All right, discussion. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, well, we're moving on to mayor's report. No report. Move on to number 11, new business. 11A, discussion of possible action regarding the consideration of changing the City of Delafield's polling location to City Hall, 500 Genesee Street. Molly.
Janine and Marty, if you want to come up. Janine Sawal and Marty Sievert are the City of Delafield Chief Election Inspectors. They have been with the city as poll workers since 2016 and shortly thereafter as the chiefs. I defer to them as far as having significantly more experience with elections than I do. They're a great team and they're a great addition, and they had brought this to my attention when I came back for Delafield 2.0, and I kind of wanted to get my feet underneath of me with a full election cycle and see how things were still going at Christ the King, take some of the potential issues here into consideration and just kind of run through that and then bring this forward to the council as a potential change for changing the polling location to City Hall. There is a memo in the packet. Actually, did you ladies want a copy of the memo that was provided? What we gave you. Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing.
Oh, thank you.
So I finally refer to them as the chiefs. If you don't mind, I'm going to continue to do that today. So the chiefs did a significant amount of legwork on behalf of this proposal, and I appreciate that. Every time I threw something out there as a possible issue, I think that they did their due diligence on finding a solution for that. So at this point, I think I'm better off to turn it over to them to go through all the information that they've gathered. I've summarized most of it in the memo that I provided in the packet. So.
I just want to thank you both for coming. You do a wonderful job through the elections, and we're very lucky to have you, so
Thank you.
we appreciate it.
We have a great staff.
We do. So thanks for having us in this common council session. As Molly said, this is Marty Sievert. I'm Janine Sawal. We've been working City of Delafield elections as election workers since February of 2016. We became chiefs right during the presidential election of November 2016 and have been the chiefs since then. We have worked with 5 different city clerks during our tenure as chiefs. And so we feel like we're the constant. We're the constant in the elections here. And we are thrilled to have Molly back, and we enjoy working with her. And so when we brought up, we've been here, we did the elections during COVID, which we had, I'm sure, as we all know, so many different challenges in and of itself. But having, that's what kind of brought this to the forefront, is that working the elections during COVID here, it just made so much more sense to us to, once we were moved back to the church, going, well, why aren't we still doing it here at City Hall? All of our equipment's here, so that's got to be transferred back and forth. And the biggest thing that we kept hearing is that the biggest concern was parking. But I'm going to turn over to Marty to talk about some of the data and
What we, in presenting and preparing this proposal, we kind of looked at it in 2 different ways. One is the data, gathering the data, and like Janine said, the first thing everyone said was parking. So dealing with the data of that. And then we went to the different department heads and had conversations with them about how it would impact them. So it was the librarian, which was Stephanie Ramirez, Paul Zellner, Landon, who's here tonight, and Tom were the people that we went to get their perspective, their thoughts on it, and then we kind of worked back with their concerns.
So the biggest thing was parking. That's what everyone kept saying, is that, well, there's just not enough parking at City Hall. There's not enough. So we went, and at the church, we had 74 parking spots available to us. And of those 74 parking spots, they run a daycare, and so there are people coming in and out during the day. There's the staff that staffs the child care center there. Plus, the chiropractic center from across the street does parks their staffing, like right behind the sign, the church sign in the parking lot. So, but if we said that all of those spots were available, we had 74. So then we came over here and we counted in the municipal lot we have 67 parking spots that, there's 4 handicap, there's 60 in the lot, and then there's 7 along that street there. If we went across the street, there's 2 handicap there and 34. And then on Genesee Street, you have 1 handicap, 10 regular on the east side of Highway C, 9 regular on the west side of C. I also talked to the manager of the bank next door, to see if we could potentially use their parking lot for either some of our staff, the poll workers during the day, or the librarians during the day. And they said they would be happy to let us park in the back half of the Chase Bank, which would increase our parking at that. So total, we have 120 parking spots available to us here at City Hall, and that's without the bank. If we include some parking spots from the bank, we've got a total of 132. So parking is not an issue at all.
Does anyone have any questions about that? Does that make sense? Okay. So then we went on to the different department heads, and first person I talked to was Tom, and first thing he said was parking, and that was probably your main concern, was parking. And so we felt like we addressed that appropriately. Then we met with the librarian, Stephanie, and she was actually really positive about having it be at a joint location. She says she sends out weekly emails, and she offered to use that as a way to educate people to the location change, and just educating them as far as making it go smoothly. She also agreed to work with us in regard to traffic flow in the lobby, because we would have to create stanchions. They have about 8 to 10 employees throughout the day, and then their volume is about 1,200 to 1,500 a week. So that would be on an election day, it would be about 250 people that could possibly go through there. So we asked her about whether curbside library service would be an option, which is what they did in COVID, or closing. Would they consider closing for the day? And she said, really, the curbside is not an option. It's not a good system. It would be too clunky. And if they would close, they do have 3 in-service days a year. But of course, that would have to go to her board, and she would have to propose it to have it be one of the days that would be off. But after we met with her, she called other librarians and asked them, that other librarians who have joint facility, and they all spoke really highly of having it be together. It kind of promoted the library. It got kind of an energy going, and so she was super positive about it. They're currently working on their schedule, and so she said she would consider closing for the presidential, which would be, of course, our biggest election next year. I think that was it for her, but she was really positive. We were really excited that she was willing to work with us. And then I talked to Paul Zellner, and just asked him how it impacts him with the DPW workers. And he estimated, so what they do is on Monday, they bring all the equipment over to the church, and they help us set it up.
From here.
From here, yeah, to the church. And they set up all the polling booths, and get the machines out, get the stanchions out, all of that kind of stuff. They get it there, we set it up, and then it's there Monday. We have election Tuesday, and then on Wednesday morning, they come and they pick it all up and take it back, most of it, of the equipment. So he figured it's using 12 to 16 man hours of his staff. And he said, just ballpark, it's $1,000 of labor cost. Now, of course, that's not actual labor, it's opportunity cost to be doing something else, because their list keeps growing. And so for them to be able to, 12 to 16 hours gives them something else, an opportunity to do other things. They do take over the electronic equipment, and we were just looking into the cost of these things. Are we like year 2 into Badger Books?
Yeah.
So we have these 8 Badger Books that we transport, and they're $2,000. So they're transporting these 8 machines over. They're transporting the DS-200, the voting machines. 3 of those they're taking over. So it's a costly and it's also a very cumbersome process for them to do that. Paul was also very positive about freeing up his workers, and of course, they would have to bring the things down here, but it would be a ton easier. And it also is, there's a safety and a security issue that we'll address also. One of the things that Molly brought up was the elevator. And so we thought, okay, what do we do if the elevator breaks down? And because we have to have access to, for the voters. And so we talked about it and we decided that the way that we would handle it, our plan A would be to have a curbside voting. So we would go out and we have a process. If someone can't come in, we take the ballot to them and they are able to vote. And so we would do that if the elevator wasn't working. Our second plan of action would be to take a Badger book machine out. And that would really, it would only be if the curbside wouldn't work, but that would be our plan B if the elevator wasn't working.
So one of the considerations that we have when proposing to move it here is safety. At the end of the night, after polls close, our staff, we sit at the church and we go through the ballots, separate them, how the county wants them done, and they get put into ballot bags, and then we physically take them into our car and we have to drive them over here. And then we finish our canvass of the books and everything while we're here. The ballots and the equipment is all left at the church overnight from Monday to Tuesday, and they are in a locked closet. But they are, you know, how secure is that? Anyone at the church that has the key potentially has access to our ballots and our equipment. Whereas here at City Hall, it would be it would be safer, you know, to be kept up in your offices. And just in leaving, you know, just the integrity of the vote. It's like we put them in our physical cars and we drive them over here. I don't think anyone's going to hijack us between Christ the King and here, but just, you know, with all of the information and, you know, the questionable questions about, you know, any fraudulent voting going on, we don't want there to be any question that, oh, that we had a different pack of ballots that was in the car that we brought in then.
And sometimes it's perception
Yes.
is more than the reality of something
Right.
like that happening.
And so it's safer to just keep it in this one place rather than having us transport it. I talked to Landon about the issue of potentially having voters crossing and having it over here. He was on board for that too. He said actually he thinks this is a better location. There's more access to parking. He doesn't think there'll be any traffic issues, and so he was really on board for having it over here as well. So as far as the volume, having done COVID while it was COVID, we kind of looked at that to say, okay, how many people came through City Hall during COVID? And there was a greater percentage that did it during, that did it as an absentee during the COVID years, but it was also a presidential election. So we had, you know, 5,072 of our voters, which was 91.7% of the city of our registered voters that we had to process, whether they were absentee or they were in person, that we handled out of City Hall. In this last, in the gubernatorial election in '22, we did 79% of our voting, the people who are eligible to vote in the city. So our biggest election that we actually did do was in City Hall. And even though we had the most absentee, we still processed those that same day. So we had to do that all and we handled it here. Currently, we pay about $300 per election to rent the church, which is really quite a bargain in today's rental prices. However, if it was here, we'd have $0 to rent City Hall because it'd just be part of the ongoing process of you being City Hall. Efficiency, Molly and Crystal, on those days, they are back and forth to the church. And her productivity is greatly impacted because she's running between places. And it's like, if we forget something, she's like, don't worry, I'll run to City Hall and I'll get it. Or Just she comes to just see that things are running, or if we have a question, she's available to us. Whereas if she was upstairs here in her office, she could be productive that whole time, and one of us could run up and have a question. Or if she were to run down, I mean, it's 1 minute to come to us as opposed to driving over to the church. And the other thing is, at the church, we have access to their kitchen, where we have coffee and we do, our workers start at sometimes 6:15, and we end at 6 in the morning, and we end at 9 at night. And there are workers who work that entire shift. We work that entire shift. And so we do have food throughout the day. We have some breakfast, we have coffee, we have lunch, we have dinner. There is no place to sit for us in the church. So when we go into the kitchen, we stand around the counters, and you'd think, well, we're sitting all day, but still, when you're eating your meal, you'd like to sit down. Whereas here at City Hall, you guys have that nice little break room in the back that works really well for us to have our meals during the day. And when you're working somewhere for 14 hours, it's nice to sit down and have your meal.
So we thought we would just go over a few things that we thought could be negatives. One is, we have the same DS200 machine. I've never seen it, anything other. And we will have voters that come in and say, oh, did you get a new machine? So we just don't like change. And so that is a little bit of a thing that we're going to have to really be positive and creative in communicating. And just through the change, through Stephanie offered her weekly newsletter through that little, through Facebook, other postings, and just really being proactive in rerouting people. And we had Badger books, and it was so great because we thought we were going to get a lot of pushback, and we presented it positively, and everyone was super positive about it. So we feel like it's not really a negative, but we just have to be proactive. In 2024, there are 4 elections, and so we thought that would be a great time to really get it in and reinforce it, and 4 times we get to do it next year. And then we have a lot of stanchions, but we're going to have to kind of do the Disney thing and have people, especially in case it's raining. So we would have people in the lobby with stanchions so that we can create lines. And then also work with Stephanie so that there's a line for people to go to the library and then a line for people to wait. Last year, our longest wait time was 30 minutes, which is really great that they can get, and that was the longest time. Often it was a lot less than that. So we did, a couple years ago, we ran into a situation where somebody put something in the lobby that had a political presentation to it. And Stephanie is super aware of it, that none of the billboards, anything can have anything political. And so again, she's on board, we're on board, so we just have to be careful of that. And maybe the deal breaker, but we have a piano in here that would probably have to go. Just so we can make better use of the space. And that's what we came up with.
Do you have any questions for us?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank and commend you for such a thorough report. I can't imagine any question that went unanswered. You talked to stakeholders, ease of access, parking, security, and election integrity. You did it all. My only question is, after that, why did we leave the city of Delafield in the first place for Christ the King? I've been here 15 years.
That was before our time, yeah.
Was it
I can
that
help
we
with
didn't
that.
have the addition
It's
that
pretty
we have
easy.
now?
It was never at City Hall. It was in the bays of the Public Works garage.
Oh, jeez.
And that was even more effort on behalf of Public Works. We'd have to take all the equipment and trucks and everything out. And it was very cold in the bays, even when
Wow.
the bays were, very cold in the bays, even when the bays were closed. So it's never been at City Hall. Prior to 2009, our City Hall was, council chamber was significantly smaller than this. It wouldn't have been a possibility before 2009. So that's the background I have.
Well, it all makes sense to me. I would be in favor of it.
What would the flow of voting be as far as, are they all in this room or in both rooms? Or how's that
So
work?
when one of the elections we did, we had everything in the lobby, and that was, we couldn't do that again. we would have them come down, so the line would be up in the lobby, and then we have 8 stations of Badger books, and so we would kind of do something similar to this. And this table is permanent, so we'd have to work with that, but we would have them come, we would have the booths be at this end, and they would exit that way. So we would have a flow like this.
What would the library be used for then, you're talking about?
Just for people to get to use the library for the day.
Just for their own use, okay.
Correct,
Just to
correct.
Get them out of the way, okay.
Right, yeah.
And I think the chiefs and myself are very open to, changing things up after an election. So we kind of roll through with what we think is going to work. And then if the flow doesn't work out the way that we anticipate, thank you, Kent, we can always adjust that. And because the big election, we have 3 kind of trial runs before that, so we'll have plenty of time to work through the hiccups in significantly smaller elections and get all of that ironed out.
Well, you mentioned it in your report, and I would hope that it would have a significant impact on our poll workers, on their stress level, because I know how stressful, I don't know personally how stressful an election can be, but all of you do. Having it here instead of transporting back and forth seems to me to be a huge advantage for all of you. Is that the case?
I think so. I think that we saw a huge jump when we introduced Badger books to the stress level. It just flowed so much better. So I think this is an extension of that as well, like you're saying. Yeah.
I think it's more of a home base. We feel more at home, less pressure to, get everything knocked out and get everything put away, and, knowing that our machines are going to be safe the next day, and, we don't have to necessarily be under the gun to wrap everything up when we're already so tired and just wore out from the day.
You'd have the same number of voting booths as you have now?
Yeah, we're regulated on that. It's so
You
many.
have to have a certain percentage of booths per electors.
But, I mean, frankly, I think the people flow is inferior here to Christ the King as far as coming in and how Christ the King queues in. I mean, you've got that long hallway. But the security of the ballots, putting them in and out of cars, I mean, that's trumps anything and everything else. And I think people, when they know where they're going after the first time, we don't like change either, but we'll change this once and don't do it again for another
And that would be our
years,
goal.
and we're good.
That would be our goal, to have it be as smooth flowing as.
It'll be different. I mean, neither solution's perfect, but the lack of transportation of the equipment and the ballots is that's a big upgrade. So I appreciate all the details you guys put into this. I think it's a win.
I almost go back. But I don't think that would be necessary.
Just one real quick comment. Have you thought at all about any kind of extra warning signage or anything for the steps and just getting people to make sure they're cautious on there? I mean,
Are you referring to these steps right here?
yeah. I mean, we'd hate to see any kind of trip and fall type things, and and then maybe during winter or rainy days, we might want to think about having someone mop the steps once every hour or 2 hours.
We
or
actually
something
had a
like that, or-
person, a greeter at the door.
Yep.
And at the stairs. I don't know if we had one at each or they kind of tag teamed, but yeah, just for safety reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
So there's no motion for this, it's directing the clerk to develop an ordinance, is that what you need?
A motion to proceed with the process, which will eventually be an ordinance, or I suppose you could just direct us to go ahead with the process, whichever the council prefers, if that's the route that you would like to take.
I'll direct this city clerk to proceed with the aforementioned proposal of changing our polling location from Christ the King to City Hall.
I'll second.
That was it.
Okay, are you calling it or me?
I feel like I heard Price first.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to 11B, discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion and possible action regarding the city of Delafield maintaining its own municipal court versus joining Lake Country Municipal Court. We have a special guest here for this one. We'll have you come on up, Chief. And Tom, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think it was at our last meeting, we met our interim municipal judge, Joanne Iring. She will be our interim judge at least until December 1st. At that point, the council will need to appoint an interim judge for the remainder of Judge Hausman's term, which goes until April of next year, at which time it would be time to elect a new municipal judge if the city does want to remain having its own independent municipal court. The alternative, we've been approached by Lake Country Municipal Court. It is a regional court that serves municipalities from 3 counties. I've read in the literature they provided us, for one place it says they service 18 municipalities, another place it says 20, so I'm not exactly sure on that, but it's a large group. They operate out of the city of Oconomowoc, so the city does have an option, and it's something that the council should consider and decide whether we want to remain independent with our own municipal court, or if we want to consider joining Lake Country Municipal Court. Just some preliminary discussion points. Landon took the opportunity to take a look at the costs that we have currently operating our own municipal court. I'm going to forego talking about the prosecution costs right now, because those are equal costs regardless of what direction we go. But as far as other costs, we currently have roughly $60,000 in costs between salaries for the judge, the court clerk, the bailiff and whatnot, a little over $4,000 in utilities, $4,000 in software, almost $4,000 in supplies. That comes out to about $60,000 in costs roughly. And the costs for Lake Country Municipal Court would be about $31,000. So there would be roughly a $29,000 a year cost savings associated with joining Lake Country Municipal Court. But we would be giving up our autonomy and how much we have a say as far as what municipal court is and how it operates and whatnot. And then perhaps more importantly, our voters' ability to decide who their municipal judge is would be significantly watered down, because they would be one of 18 or 20 municipalities that would vote in totality for who the judge is. Those are my initial thoughts. Landon, do you have anything that you wanted to add on that?
I just would echo what Administrator Hafner said about maintaining our own court and the ability for the people here in Delafield to truly pick who their judge is.
And so I don't know if that gives you enough information to make a decision tonight, but the point was to at least start the discussion tonight and find out if there's any interest, and if there was more information that you needed to make a decision to provide that direction, and we can head in that direction.
I was able to sit in a staff meeting and so forth and hear some discussions amongst a few different people. And after those discussions, I mean, in my opinion, from what I heard, while there are some cost savings to go to a larger group, at the end of the day, the costs aren't going to be as much as we might think on paper through increased travel time, the fact that our day will be a Friday, we will not start early, that any court tends to run later in the afternoon than they do in the morning appointments. So while you think you might only be there for an hour, whether it's the police officer or our city judge or attorney, they'll end up potentially being there longer than if they were here where it was very cut and dry. So those cost savings in my mind shrunk, And the autonomy that we have here and the voice of our citizens for this lead me to want to keep it here and have an election. It's not a panacea. Certainly you can have an election and end up with a judge that many people, you know, in the end wouldn't be happy with, right? I've talked to a couple of other judges, and that does happen, right? We've been very fortunate to have Houseman as a judge for 40 years here, and to anybody's recollection, nobody ever ran against him, and he did a wonderful job. You know, we would hope to be able to find somebody else like Judge Houseman there, so. But all that said, that was my opinion on listening to the staff conversations and the prosecutor.
Were those considerations included in the 29,000 savings roughly? How are those? You said there'd be 29,000 roughly in savings going to Lake Country. How does the mayor's comments reconcile with that 20,000? Is that a firm number? Is that soft? Is that?
Those were not included in that calculation. Any chance that Lake Country Municipal Court would be running late and therefore our staff would have to be there longer than expected, or, you know, similarly, opportunity costs where our residents would have to be sitting there longer than what they would if they were here in our court.
Okay.
Just one other thing that I meant to mention, but, you know, the ability to maintain our own court does require that we would need someone to run for judge. Presumably, we likely would. I think, Molly, you said one person did call inquiring about the judge position?
I do not recall that phone
Okay.
conversation.
Okay.
You don't need to be an attorney to run for judge.
Well, that's
Well,
what
that's
I was
another
going to
thing.
mention.
We might need to change that.
There currently are no requirements, so theoretically, you could get an 18-year-old high schooler that runs as a joke and becomes that. But we
Or you can have a mayor's court.
okay. We can add qualifications to our municipal code, and there is some thought that it would make sense for, perhaps the council would want to require the judge to have a law degree or be certified by the state bar.
Other than choosing, other than our citizens being able to elect the judge, what other autonomy would we retain by having our own court? Like, what other considerations are there?
All the considerations that we're dealing with Lake Country Fire, right? How costs are divvied up in the future, and
That goes through our court?
no.
Oh.
I'm saying it's an example of a regional cooperative agreement where, you know, potentially if things don't go as expected, then you have different communities not agreeing on who should pay what or what the cost should be. But you know, I can't envision that they would. They haven't been problematic in the past for Lake Country Municipal Court, and I can't envision that they would in the future. But
To that point, what would if we were to enter into an agreement with Lake Country, how long would that agreement last? Is that year to year, or is it?
so we haven't gotten to that level of detail yet.
7 years. 7 years.
But there
no
is-
getting out.
There is
Something about 2 years, wasn't there?
There was one statement in the letter that the judge provided, was that after 2 years, we would become a voting member.
Yeah, I saw that.
So we'd have to look into those type of details more.
I just remember hearing some stories from Judge Hausman working very closely with the chief on situations that just made sense for the individual, made sense for the city. I think going through a municipal court, you'd lose a lot of that. It'd just be a number of 1 of 20 districts, and whatever is said is said. I don't know if you would lose that or you could still keep that somehow. But right now, we've got a nice relationship, you know, that, you know, the chief could steer things that would make sense and the judge could agree or not agree. But I would think you might lose that going through a court with 20 different cities in it. But
Well, Chief, how do you feel about it?
Because we're separate entities and, through the Constitution, we're separate branches of government, I don't want to weigh in too heavily, other than I do know the court runs efficiently. We would see paperwork improvements. However, time-wise, officer time spent going to court, and their actual court days would most likely be longer. And it means tougher time for us, staffing, more overtime, which aren't included in these numbers because I don't have any hard data to project that. We do have an excellent relationship with our, both our prosecutor and the court clerk. We work together to resolve issues that do come up very efficiently. And that's because it is our local court, and we're dealing one-on-one. And so there are benefits there that I see.
What's the frequency of your officers attending court or being required to appear?
I would say about once every other month. So,
One officer once every other month.
yes. We do run bailiffs. We have one bailiff for every court, but that's a salary position.
6 times a year.
We run court monthly.
No, but your officer is 6 times.
Yep, we have it varies based on caseload, but it's about 6 times a year that an officer has to testify.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, as far as information, that was one of the pieces of information I was going to ask for, and you had it on the top of your head, so that's good. The other one would be if we could, something that'd be helpful to know is what other kinds of, some examples of qualifications that maybe other municipalities in Wisconsin have put on for qualifications for judge. So we could feel more comfortable if we left this wide open, that we wouldn't have the joke scenario. And I'm hesitant to give direction tonight because we're missing 2 people, but also I think this is something that would be good for us to, poke a few of our favorite constituents and get some feedback on the street as far as what they think, because we're talking about taking a pass on a dollar savings for a level of service and a quality level, so I think giving us a couple weeks on this to do those kinds of polling would be good.
Are there other things that you'd like me to find out from Judge Kay over at Lake Country? Matt, you mentioned, opt-out clause?
Mm-hmm. And then a voting member in 2 years. I guess what's the commitment? I would assume if we did go that route, we would, the mayor would appoint an elected representative to sit on that, or would that be administrator time? And is that calculated? And how much time is that? And is that calculated in the 29,000 versus of savings? Are they meeting weekly? With you, Tom? That might not be best.
I think I might have remembered that they meet yearly, I think.
Okay.
I don't recall, and I believe it was the police chiefs that were on that board.
Okay.
How long has that board been in existence?
How long has Lake Country Municipal Court been in place?
Like, how long has it, yeah. I mean, if we're joining into something, how established is it? How long has it been there?
A fair number of years.
98?
Yeah.
I think it was in here.
And I think they just got new accommodations a couple of years ago. Is that what I read?
Yeah, they're in the new police department and municipal court building in the city of Oconomowoc.
So their processes and the way that they run things have been going that way for a while. They're not new to the game.
No.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, the court was formed in 1988.
okay.
I'd also like a quick poll of the municipalities that are members, and just get the pulse of what their thoughts are on how that operation runs. Thank you.
All right, anything else? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move on. Thank you, Chief. Okay, 11C, introduction of resolution number 2023-14, a resolution of the Common Council to vacate and discontinue a portion of Lake Street public right-of-way, referral of the matter to the Planning Commission for consideration and recommendation of the Common Council pursuant to Wisconsin 62.235, and set the date of public hearing on the resolution at least 40 days after the date of introduction. Are you, Tom?
It is. So yeah, there's actually two separate resolutions. One is for a portion of Lake Street, and one is for a portion of the alley that comes off of Lake Street. If you'll recall, a few years back, we actually already vacated a portion of Lake Street in this area that was going to be to accommodate a condominium development that was proposed at the time. That development ended up falling through. And now there is a new development proposal. The Miller Marriott firm that is currently developing Beacon Hill in the city of Delafield, they're proposing to build an office building. That proposal is going through the approval process currently. But part of that proposal would be vacation of a small segment of Lake Street and a small segment of the alley off of it. What the council would be doing tonight would be not approving it, but just starting the process towards approval of it, and approving these resolutions that introduce the issue, and then referring it to the Plan Commission, where they would provide a recommendation back to the Common Council. And the Common Council would then hold a public hearing on this, with that public hearing being scheduled for November 20th. So the recommendation would be to move forward and at least begin the process this evening by passing these two resolutions.
C and D.
Aren't they just, you're just introducing the resolutions though? You don't pass them until Plan Commission approves them, is that not correct?
Introducing the resolutions.
You said approving the resolution.
I said approving, I didn't mean that.
Okay. So we don't need any action, we're just introducing them?
Hold on.
Do we need a motion to send these to the Plan Commission? Or are these just here saying that?
It doesn't say for discussion and action, no.
Let me just get to the agenda real quick.
11C.
Because the introduction just occurred. Right? I mean,
Yeah, I would recommend that the council make a motion introducing resolution number, and I would say two different motions, one for each. Introduction, or resolution, excuse me, a motion introducing resolution number 2023-14, and referral of the resolution to the Plan Commission for consideration and recommendation back to Common Council, and set the date for the public hearing on November 20th.
so the public hearing's here. It's a council.
the
public hearing.
council.
Okay.
It is.
And how does the 20th fit into Thanksgiving? Is that, we're going to meet on that? I'm assuming it's a scheduled meeting.
Yes, it is a scheduled meeting. That'd be the Monday during Thanksgiving week.
Okay. I'm just curious. Well, I'll make a motion to introduce resolution number 2023-14 to vacate a portion of Lake Street and refer the matter to the Plan Commission for consideration and recommendation back to the council, and set the date for the public hearing on November 20th.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes.
And I'll make a motion to introduce resolution number 2023-15 to vacate and discontinue an alley within public right-of-way, referring the matter to the Plan Commission for consideration recommendation back to the council and set the date for that public hearing on November 20th.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll briefly discuss. Look in the Plan Commission packet for pictures. There's some images of, or look on YouTube for the meeting. There's an overview of the proposal that's associated with this Miller Marriott building. Say office building, that could mean 100 things. I think most people will like what that particular presentation is, just for backfilling something I missed in my Plan Commission meeting overview. So.
And the city has no value in maintaining these accesses, so. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions passes. Okay, we'll move on to 11E, update on the writing of the tree ordinance as requested by Alderperson Price. Tom?
Yeah, thus far I've had minimal opportunity to work on this. I have received one referral from our city planner to look at the municipal or the county code for Waukesha County. They have a ordinance that provides protection of trees on residential properties within 300 feet of surface waters. So that's one place that I will be looking, but I can certainly, once we get past budget issues that I'm working on right now, probably November, December, I'll have an opportunity to work on the research of tree ordinances more at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to F, update on the Horn-Free Railroad crossing at Vedelson Road as requested by Alderperson Price.
Yeah, the quiet zone pursuit has been a challenge. When I first talked to, I've been referred to about 5 or 6 different railroad representatives, and finally last October I got direction that our crossing still needed new pavement markings and new signage added to be compliant with quiet zone requirements. We did that last October. And I had not pursued it further after that, but I did get an email today to the Federal Railroad Administration District 4 specialist asking for direction on how to move forward from this point.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to G, approval of the voucher list.
I move to approve the voucher list for September 19th through October 2nd.
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions passes. All right, we're on to 12, report of city officials. A, city administrator. 1, reminder of upcoming, I'll let you do that, Tom.
Yeah, the first update is just a reminder to everyone that our second of 2 brush collections throughout the year is coming up next week. And that for residents to ensure that their brush will be collected, they should have it out alongside the street no later than 6:30 Monday morning.
October 9th.
Correct. A week from today.
It's very popular, the brush pickup.
Yes.
And then as far as the second thing under my report is the budget timeline. Just a reminder that our budget workshop this year is going to be on Tuesday, October 24th. We are going to move that. In the past, we've had it over at the Public Safety Building, but we're going to bring that back into this room here. I think we can still accomplish more of an informal setup here, get some tables set out on the floor. So that'll be Tuesday, October 24th, 6 o'clock in this room. And then the public hearing will be at the regularly scheduled council meeting on November 6th. And then the final consideration of the budget will be at the regularly scheduled council meeting on November 20th.
Any questions about the timeline? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to city clerk.
Just communicator articles will be due November 22nd. That's about a little less than 2 months away. So if you know any organizations who would like to contribute, please let them know to send them to me. We generally stick to informational and event types of publications. We stay away from any solicitations of any kind for the most part. And so kind of following along that, other than that, we're happy to support City of Delafield organizations with those articles out in the communicator, which goes out to every residential home in the city.
Great, thank you. All right, C, city treasurer, I'll refer you to the packet. D, council request for future agenda items. Have any tonight?
I've got about 6.
Okay, start
I'm
now.
only kidding.
Okay, all right, if you come up with any later, but for the next meeting, please share them with Tom. Okay, 13, correspondence. I'll refer you to the PSC Digital Equity Plan and the Summit Comprehensive Plan update in your packet. Seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 9:30.